Frostbite, hypothermia, snow blindness, navigational issues, minus 50 degrees, 250 kilometres, and we are sipping Lemsip.
We are indeed.
Oh, it's very hot.
Yeah.
Which the Arctic was not, as you covered 250 kilometres across it very recently. And we're going to explore exactly that before we explore all of the things that you and your little fingers need to go and do. So first of all, take them up the yellow brick road towards the follow and or subscribe button. Make sure to leave a review if you have not yet done so already. Share this episode or an episode previously with a friend. In fact, no, share this episode. This is going to be a banger. Johnny's put himself through the ringer, done something really cool. We're going to talk about it. You're going to listen. You're going to think, wow, how amazing. I'm going to tell my friends all about this. Thank you in advance. And do make sure to check out Omni Performance Premium, the website, social media channels, etc., etc. So thank you for doing all of that. And thank you, Johnny, for being here to talk about your frostbitten little penis.
You got there in the end, didn't you?
Okay.
For anybody who's interested.
So what,
my wife, for instance, my little penis is not frostbitten. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, forget it. Forget it.
Got him. So the broader joke there was that because it was so cold, there was shrivel, but you've just taken it down a different path.
Yeah.
So what we have here, like the format of the last podcast, is a series of questions from Johnny's audience, which I have access to, which I will ask him. I will chime in with some thoughts and feelings as we go, as I have some questions of my own. But we are going to just cover what the people want, you know? Give them what they want, Johnny.
Give the people what they want, which is usually a lot of suffering and misery, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is, yeah.
The more miserable
you really do enjoy watching us do stupid stuff.
The more horrible our lives get, the more people go, ooh, that's nice.
So, decent amount of questions to get through here, and we will start off with the obvious one, which is the question from Gaz Fitz, which is, did you have to bring your poo back out?
No, but I brought a lot of poo in. No, luckily that was not a requirement of the expedition, was to maintain 0 poos. No. Short answer.
No, you're going to have to answer that again, because the way that sounded was that you didn't have any poos.
I pooed less than I would normally poo. This is how we're going to start this? Okay, fair enough.
You need to answer the
question. Thanks, Gaz.
So what was the solution? What was the poolution? That was fucking terrible. Oh no! Answer the question so we can move on, Johnny.
No, we didn't have to take our poo with us. If we had needed to do a random in the middle of nowhere poo, I think the advice was just to dig a hole for it. But it didn't happen for me that way, so I was all right.
Tee-hee-hee-hee-hee.
Thanks for that question.
Which do you think will... Samson Strength _BKK. He's the Burger King king.
Seems that way.
Which do you think will be worse, the cold or the heat for an ultra?
For me, the heat.
And for you, to qualify that, if we both look at the camera, for anyone watching on video, and just compare skin colour, Johnny is
much more muscular.
Translucent.
But much whiter.
And whilst, yes, fair, I have been in the Southern Hemisphere for a little while.
Yeah.
You are permanently translucent.
Yeah, this is my tan. The heat will be far worse for me. I'm not somebody who copes with the heat well. I am a shadow ninja in the summer here in Scotland, and the heat's going to be far worse for me. I'm not looking forward to that at all.
Speaking of heat, Lemsip is delicious, isn't
Lemsip
it?
is
I'm not even ill.
No.
Johnny just had Lemsip.
I'm ill and brought Lemsip, so you've just partaken with
And I'm just preemptively having Lemsip, given that I'm sitting next to him.
Do you know what's nice in a Lemsip, though, is whiskey. I've had many a hot toddy.
I was going to say, you're acting as if that's new. Johnny, this is very well established.
Actually, do you know what's nice in anything? Whiskey. Let's move on.
Sold. So, Peanuts, 9173, a question I should steer clear of as Peanuts do kill me. What did you have on gear-wise for task, and well done, big lad. Big Johnny Pin!
Big Johnny Pin.
So, essentially, equipment, clothing, go.
Well, I'm lucky enough to have been kitted out mostly top to toe by Through Dark, so I had a sort of modular system of various bits of kit. So never off were the seamless base layers, which is kind of essentially long johns, and what would be the opposite of long johns are the trousers? What would be the opposite of long johns for a top? Like a long sleeved vest on top. Anyway, skin-tight seamless merino
Garys.
base layer. Skin-tight seamless base layers, they were on the whole time. And then on top of that, I had a siege base layer, which is a sort of a pullover zip-up. Again, merino wool-based, bit of Polotech in that. And then on top, I kind of played between having the Centurion Polotech long-sleeved hooded top on top of that. And when it got very cold, I had the recoil on, which is the kind of technical puffer coat with the cutout back that allows you to breathe through a pack. That make sense? The way I've said that? Yes. Sure it does.
Yeah, there's a part of me that wants to go out the breathe through the back of your jacket thing, because it sounded like you were implying that's where you were breathing. But
it allows.
I was going to make a very contrived joke, but
if you had a normal puffer on and then you put a pack on the back, then you're kind of squeezing against all the down, and you might overheat through the pack or sweat or etc. But the recoil is a technical kind of patch, kind of a stretch layer in there, which allows the pack to sit against it, and then the pack is your insulation,
so that's
without compromising the puffer itself.
That's
absolutely
clothing.
Excellent.
That's clothing. And
clothing on my feet, I wore
gear-wise,
Innovate rock lights with a couple of sizes up, so I could get
big fat feet,
great big fat feet in there. Had great big hooves, cloven hooves. I had actually, it's probably useful to say, I had chamois cream my feet up. I never had any problems with my feet at all.
I am fortunate enough to have most of the same experiences on ultras, which I think is the pitfall for most people. So,
a lot of people tape their feet and all the rest of it, but I chamois cream mine and do that daily. So keep them chamois creamed up. Put a liner sock on. Over the top of that, I had a merino.
Were you in the little Injanjis that you like to wear?
No, I didn't do that. I'll come back to that in a second. So I wore just a liner sock, a nice tight, almost compression sock. Over the top of that, a mountain merino sock, and over the top of that, some sealskin waterproof socks. So very thick layer, and then that's why my shoes were size 11 instead of the usual 9. I'd done that in practice as well, tested that out, made sure to practice in that format beforehand, so I was quite comfortable with it. And it worked perfectly.
Nice.
I never once had wet feet.
And snowshoes?
Snowshoes were a nightmare. I had ordered snowshoes 3 months out from the event, and they just didn't come. And as the event got closer and closer, I ended up having to order some that I knew would arrive very quickly, and so my choice was limited, and ended up with, I guess, at first I thought it was a disadvantage. My snowshoes were much larger than the next person's snowshoes. Everybody else had...
as you were, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true. So that plays into what I was going to say. It actually turned out to be an advantage, because I was heavier and my snowshoes were bigger. I think there was a kind of the
relative,
ratios, the relative ratios played out. They were much heavier. I think my snowshoes came in at about 1.5 kilos combined, whereas the next person's were like about 300 grams. They're way heavier than they should have been. And I think mine had a steel framed, where everybody else's were plastic framed. I'm trying to remember as I'm talking the name of the brand of the usual snowshoe that people have. And mine were Atlas Treeline, which are probably designed more for people that are kind of taking a nice hiking stroll from place to place, as opposed to everybody else was wearing the equivalent of a sports shoe.
Like a speed shoe, a speed snowshoe.
But because I was bigger, the ones that I had then dissipated my weight a little bit better, and also I found them quite comfortable once I got used to it. It forced a very straight gait with me, so I didn't find them terribly uncomfortable. In the end, they were much heavier than I wanted them to be, and I ended up with a little bit of it. The only niggle I came out of the whole thing with was my left tib ant from dorsiflexing in a slightly odd manner to lift that snowshoe just became tired. Have I missed out? Kit?
Safety equipment. Let's cover that.
Ooh. Well, we'd have to have a big list for that. So I had a med kit rammed full of bits and bobs. We had to have syringes, scalpels, all kinds of stuff for dealing with injuries. We needed to carry everything with us for the full week. So my pack was about 12 kilos on in the first place, because I had roughly 4,000 calories per day. Trying to do all the maths in my head, figure out where that was, and then I had all the kit that I've described. I had to carry with me daily, and then there were things like glow sticks that you had to take, lighting systems, the usual kind of stuff, and then obviously more stuff than you would carry for a usual ultra in order to keep warm. We had goggles, sunglasses, all kinds of things, face masks, whatnot. So it was quite a big kit carried for me in an ultimate direction backpack, which was very good with a few issues, I think.
Okay. There's a few questions like this, and it's an interesting one because I do wonder as well. How did you handle going for a quick piddle when it's minus 50 degrees?
Well, I didn't have a piss in minus 50 degrees because I was afraid that my dick would freeze off. Genuinely, that would have been a concern. So I waited till it was not as cold.
Okay.
For the most part, I think the average temperature would have been somewhere between minus 20 and minus 15 for the most part. And you were able, if you were quick at your game, to have a pee without anything freezing.
So essentially, wait until you're about to piss. No waiting around. No waiting room time.
Do you know what? I'm just going to have a quick pee. Wouldn't do that. You have to. I waited until I really needed. Right, this is necessary. I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
Get it done. Get yourself packed away again. I mean, all jokes aside, I think if you weren't managing that correctly, and actually, for all the men out there, if you weren't shaking properly, I can't speak to that for obvious reasons, but I think
didn't treat yourself to a sit down.
No, I didn't. I should have done. Should have tried it out. I wonder what this feels like.
You pissed yourself.
Sit down too
50.
low and get stuck to something.
Like all these cartoons of a kid with a tongue stuck to a lamppost. It's you squatting down with your cock glued to the floor.
Somebody bring more water. No, it never became a problem. I think they're really silly to say it, but I think if you hadn't taken care of yourself and shaken properly and all the rest of it, you might have ended up with damp patches that could have frozen, could have caused yourself problems.
That's what Taylor Swift wrote the song about, isn't it?
Prince, what's his face?
You provided a lot of clarity with the second statement there.
There's two princes that people like. I don't know their names properly. Harry and William. One of them who's just written a book. Which one's that?
Prince Harry.
He complained that he got frostbite in his dick, didn't he?
I don't know. I'm not that interested in other men's dicks.
Contrary
to what this podcast discussion might lead you to believe.
But this was pointed out to me before I left by a friend. Even Prince Harry got his fucking dick, and it turned out he did. And his mate sent him some kind of cock warmer for the next time he went to the Arctic. I thought, what a soft ponce he is. That's controversial. So I did not need that because I am not well, let's just move on.
Okay. So
all the questions have been toilet related so far.
Well, there was 3 people asked that.
Did they?
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, it's a fair concern. It is a fair concern because it's highly impractical, and you've got your hands out as well to control the beast. So, having it like but in minus 30, minus 20, minus 15, all these numbers.
You've got to be fast.
Yeah, but essentially, your hands are managing direction, and those hands are exposed, and your hands is the extremity that's most at risk. So. Yeah, it's a very valid question.
And yeah, genuinely, you have to be a bit smart about it.
So, Sam_and_Orion, what was the hardest variable from the Arctic Ultra that could not be trained for prior?
Very good question. Ultimately, the sheer cold. I mean, there would be no way really, unless you went to the Arctic, to really prepare yourself physically overall for that, for those extremes. So I think it's as simple as an answer is that. For me, I could also throw in the fact that I didn't get, because of the way that the delivery of the shoes and all the rest of it happened for me, I didn't get a chance really to try out the snowshoes. So I had to learn on the job, which didn't actually cause me any problems, but at the time it caused me a certain amount of anxiety, because when I knew, right, I'm going to have to put these things on, I wasn't sure how that was going to pan out. It was okay in the end, but I'd rather that hadn't been something that I was concerned about.
A couple of people have asked this. Would you change anything about your training/prep?
Honestly, no. That's been a real delight for me to come away from that debriefing with you, with Alex, and just anybody that I'm chatting to. Is I actually think that the way we prepped couldn't have gone better for me, frankly.
Aside from the pneummonia.
Yeah. The actual.
So there's a recommendation for you: don't get pneumonia if you would like to train effectively.
Yeah. I don't know what it's like to train for that without getting pneumonia, so I can't speak to not having pneumonia in that circumstance.
Interesting.
But the training, I genuinely think, for me, worked really, really well. I don't think it's for everybody. I think we had to factor in the fact that I'm bigger than your usual ultra runner in that scenario. My pack was heavier because I have to maintain more calories than most people.
And you had the wrong snowshoes, which added more weight.
Add a little bit more weight. But then the fact is that I was a hell of a lot stronger than most of the people in the lineup there, and therefore that pack was less of a concern for me. So it played out again. So
Simcox_Mark, buzzword incoming. What did you do for recovery every day?
Slept. That's it. There is no opportunity whatsoever for anything other than trying to do the.
How did you have? We haven't even discussed this, but did you have, when you got to the tents, they were like yurt setups, weren't they, each evening?
Yeah.
Were there like hides laid out for you to sleep on, or was it you provide your own sleeping bags and everything? Was there no food put on or anything?
No, anything you carried was yours. So if you wanted to eat, you have to have that in your own bag. They didn't provide anything. Hot water they would provide. And the setup was different every night. We had teepees with ranger skin on snow on night one. There were small Swedish cabins, and one night 4 of us kind of smashed in there like about the size of a shed, which was dreadful. I'll come back to that at some point if you want.
Do it right now.
Well, okay, so
why so dreadful? Why was that one specifically so bad?
I had 2 terrible nights. Night one, before this is the night before the race started. We were actually in the teepees with reindeer skin, and I don't think I got 10 minutes sleep, which didn't set me up for a great day one. It was just incredibly uncomfortable. The skins themselves actually kept you quite warm, in the sense I wasn't lying straight on. I was lying on one of them, and that was straight on snow inside my sleeping bag, obviously, and it kept you dry and kept you warm. There was a certain amount of warmth radiated from that. But then they slid, so if I was on even a 1 degree angle, you'd find
to be in completely different circumstances. But I once slapped
a reindeer.
We'll come back to that. I once slept on a campsite in Wales where I was at a slight angle, and it was the most frustrating thing ever. So it was essentially, do you reposition your tent or do you just reshuffle the whole night? And I chose the latter, which made me miserable. But not that's without having to deal with the cold as well. So I can empathise with your frustration.
Well, there were 6 of us in this tent, strangers at this point, and there was reindeer skin laid out. You just picked one. I picked mine, and retrospectively should have sort of smashed underneath it to create a nice flat line. Didn't, just kind of lay my kit out, didn't want to upset anybody by stomping all over them and being the guy. Then once you get yourself in, getting out isn't something you'd be keen about, because you get in, get warm, you don't have to get out in the cold and wake everybody up and all the rest of it. So I kind of tried to put up with it, but there was a strange anxiety. I was anxious anyway because the race was coming closer and closer, and I found myself a little overwhelmed with that, just because I got in my own head a little bit, but also because I was frustrated trying to get this sleep in, which just wasn't going to happen. And it was so cold. I think I'd have to speak to Chris and find out what the temperature was, but it was so cold that night that in order to not freeze, you would have to cocoon yourself right inside your sleeping bag. So zip it up with you in it.
Yeah.
But which was claustrophobic. So every time I found it claustrophobic. So I was in there and I wasn't breathing very well, and I was thinking, oh God, I'm fucking trapped in this bastard sleeping bag. So I would unzip it for a second, try and stick my face out, and then my face would freeze. I was like, shit, I got to go back in. So there was this kind of backwards and forwards of finding that kind of happy medium between breathing properly and not freezing.
So you were the unhappy caterpillar.
Very, very unhappy. And then I slid down, and if I drifted off, I found myself with my feet outside the teepee because I'd slipped down this thing like when kids sit on those sacks on the slides and little sacks.
Yeah.
It was like that. I just found myself outside. It was dreadful. Really, I hated it.
Okay. And the shed?
The shed was like a little hut. Inside it was this was an exercise in patience on my part. In my particular one, there was 4 of us: a German lad and 2 French people, a guy and a girl. Not related; they just both happened to be French. And me. And the 2 French people had been in first, and they had heated up. There was a wood burner in there.
Oh, luxury.
So, they put that on, shut the door, and the place was now like a massive sauna. It was outrageous. Like really, really sort of so hot that I was laid there, drenched in sweat with a wet bed, just laying there, just completely soaked. And to try and explain to them that what they needed to do was open the door and let some of the heat out, because the language barrier was really hard. When I did manage to explain it to them, they were concerned that the clothes that they had gotten wet wouldn't get dry. So then I get into a problem of trying to explain to these people that that's not how convection works, and it would actually be better for their clothes if they allowed the heat to escape and the moisture to move and all this kind of stuff. And in the end, I just gave up because I was getting aggressive.
So when you thought when
So
you
I
were
had to
younger,
sleep in a
oh,
puddle.
shut up, miss. When am I ever going to need to use French past school?
Well, they didn't speak a word of English either, so we were kind of in that kind of it was nobody's fault that they didn't understand the other person, but I was frustrated because I couldn't get my point across, which was, please don't kill me. I'm already
I'm
dehydrated.
translucent and hot.
Yeah, I'm already dehydrated and now I'm lying in a puddle of my own sweat and this is your fault and you could fix it, but forget it. And I woke up about 3 a.m. having drifted off and the temperature had regulated just enough for me to go, oh, thank God for that. And then I heard the lad get out of his bed and put another 3 logs on the fire. I was like, bastard, you bastard.
Un bastard! Un bastard!
I don't know how to say I'm going to kill you in French, so I'm just going to do it. They
Okay.
were lovely. They were lovely people. It was just a miscommunication.
Yeah.
I should add.
Okay. So that's covered. I can't even remember what the question was, but no, fascinating. We'll finish with this one, actually, because it's probably the most profound one, and I'd love to hear your reflective considerations on it. So, spoiler, there's a big one coming. Don't you sneak a look at my phone. You've seen the questions, though. So actually,
I couldn't possibly read from here. I can just see blurry lines.
has completing this ultra made you feel more prepared / confident for the next ones?
No.
Okay.
Was that your big question? That I just
No. But I assume
I'm
what
being facetious.
well, you are and you aren't. Different climates, different challenge.
I can answer that in more detail, but it sounds like there's another part to that question coming, is there?
No, there's not. But just lots to get through. So stop waffling.
Okay. Has it made me more prepared for the other ones?
Yeah. / confident.
Confident, yes. More confident. So coming into this, Fergus, probably more than anybody, barring maybe my wife, understands how much of a journey I've been on with certain things in my private life, but certainly just in terms of the athletic journey.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you here and ask the question that I was going to hold to the end because we'll cross over here. So, Bamsaker _89. The question I've just asked was from Sven187, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
What was your main motivation for seeing this endeavour through? So these two questions definitely tie into one another.
Yeah, they do tie in, I suppose. So I won't go through the catalogue of injuries, but I had from 2016 to 2019, give or take, and I put up a post about it the other day from something I had posted in 2018. 3 leg breaks, surgery for compartment syndrome, hypothermia, God, I can't remember, there's a couple of other things on the list, issues that caused me not to finish things, not to be able to start things, to get halfway through events and become a cropper, and then spent a long time rehabbing, etc., etc. And at one point was told I wouldn't ever be able to run in the mountains again. This whole thing had to stop. So, although we have done Nevis since then, which really helped me kind of slay some demons, this was a very different proposition, and I was concerned that history would repeat itself. And that's easy to get in your head and let play out and play over. That's what happened to me in the teepee with the ranger skin. Was I was also caught in this kind of real negative, anxious, fuck this, why am I here? I shouldn't be here. This is going to go awfully. I should just bow out now and all this kind of stuff. So not only did I get through it, but I got through it really rather well. I held back hard on the first day, thinking I need to pace myself. And looking back on it, I could have gone a lot faster and a lot harder and given more of myself on that first day. I'm not in no way regret not going harder on that first day. There was no goal other than to finish it. But I now know that my performance capability is way beyond where I had thought it would be, and actually matches the metrics in terms of the training and the performance capability that I showed through training and all the rest of it. You would say, yeah, there's no question you can smash this. But I still didn't believe it in myself. So having gotten through it well, I'm in a very different place with it now.
Good man. Very good to hear. Any kit from, question, I'm bad at reading these names. Elliot Nal. Any kit you didn't take but wish you had? No. At one point, because of weight and where to put it and all the rest of it, I left mitts behind. So I had a modular glove system as well, and I had a thin liner pair of gloves and then had some Pertex gloves over the top of that. And I had got some big old black diamond mitts that I was going to wear in case I needed to stop for long. And I worried a few times, maybe I should have brought my mitts. But I did find once, you mentioned it in a different context at some point recently, where you get that kind of, that be bold
start cold kind of thing. It doesn't really apply when you're in the Arctic because you're already going to be cold, but there was a certain element of, oh God, my fingers are so cold, I'm worried about that because it could lead to catastrophic kind of results. But actually, I learned to remember that I needed at least 15 minutes of hard work before my whole body would heat up. And I never didn't find my hands warm enough if I allowed it that amount of time. So I only ever questioned, should I have taken the mitts? And then I realised no. So no is the short answer.
Haribo 515, what was the most challenging experience of the whole event?
Hi, Matt. That's my good friend, Matt. I think genuinely the night before.
That spiral of...
That spiral of
you crossed the threshold of this is where I should be asleep. Fucking hell, I'm not sleeping. Oh God, this thing's so big. I shouldn't
even be here. It's a lot of shit. Yeah. And then spending a lot of time saying, I'm just going to go and... the organisers themselves are about 2 miles away at this point. I'm just going to get my shit on, march up to them, tell them, apologies, I've wasted your time. I spent a lot of time playing with that idea.
I think it's probably worth unpacking that a little bit, because I think the persona that you give off, the CV that you have, the way that this event has unfolded, to the outside looking in no way indicates that you would have had the level of self-doubt that put you in the position where you were considering knocking on the organisers' doors and saying, you know what, I've wasted your time.
Yeah, we've been there before, though, haven't we, with the Dinnies as well? Right, this is stupid. I shouldn't be here.
Where do you think that comes from? Are those the demons that you just referenced that you're unpacking and feel like you've unpacked a little bit more having gone through this process? Or is there something more deep-rooted there?
Probably both. I think I've learned to believe over the course of like a 4-year process of trying that injury is just around the corner for me, and that I am. And then the jokes that go with it, although always superficial and silly, they do stick with you. It's a little bit like sticks and stones kind of thing. Is that, you know, you get this kind of reputation as, fucking hell, Johnny, you'll get 50 miles and then your leg will break, ha ha ha. And that actually sticks a little bit because you kind of think, yeah, you're not wrong though, are you? And it plays into fears that you might have. So I'm not generally lacking in confidence and again, on paper, I can look at it all and go, there's no way that this individual, were it not me, wouldn't and shouldn't. But then it's easy just to get caught up in your own head. So I think there is something underlying there. I've done that all the time, though. Done that fighting, done that when in situations where I've had to contest violence and just not a sporting context. Always thought, right, this is chips for you, mate, and then battled through and come out on top. So
it's just reassuring to know.
It's
just reassuring for everyone to know that even though you've got through something mental, which there was a 40% completion rate, you were still at the start line riddled with self-doubt.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be very interested to speak to others that were there and find out whether it was the same with them. I'd be surprised if it wasn't.
Well, we're having Chris on, and he might have had a bit more comms with them, so that's maybe a question we could ask.
That'd be very interesting to find out. Yeah, but for me, that's always there, and it's something that pushes me because I know I'm going to meet that. But that was really intense, personally. And to go back to Matt's question again, outside of that, day 2 was a nightmare.
What was day 2? That was the 42, was it? Mount Cabler.
Day 2 was Mount Cabler, where we had the kind of minus 50. That's including wind chill. I think it was minus 30 something.
It was essentially flat for a little bit. Up, plateau at the top. Brutal. Down, done. Wasn't it?
No. Well, close. It was essentially relatively flat, small gradient, and then we climbed 1,000 meters, almost on the nose elevation, over a short distance. That was, but as you came over the top of the peak, you came down, and then there was another lift, so another 400 or so. So everybody got over the top of that and thought, thank fuck for that, it's done. And then all of a sudden it started to go up again. You're like, oh God, this is happening again.
That was where it peaked out at minus 50. Winds were brutal.
Yeah, spin drifts, couldn't see more than a few meters. And that's where I think 8 people had to be taken off the mountain and rescued. It was really, really hard, really hard.
Well
and
done.
that was going back to that fear scenario. That was every step was a, can I do this?
Yeah.
And I found that really interesting because as you're thinking, maybe I can't do this, right? What are you going to do? Here's what to do if you can't do it, and start to think about kind of, do I pull the parachute cord now? All this kind of stuff. You realise by the time you've thought that stuff, you've taken another 30 steps, and so you can kind of pad that out over the course of 3 or 4 hours, and then you're like, oh, I did it. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
So very interesting, but that was really, really hard. That was genuinely hard. Probably physically the most arduous thing I've done for a very, very long time.
Well done for seeing it through. No easy feat.
No, that's tough.
Caldermac, Scotland's viral TikTok sensation.
Hello, sir.
You should respond to this one in Gaelic, I feel.
I would if I could. And if I did, he would know how to correct me instantly. Well, that was rubbish, mate.
Did you speak to yourself, brackets, out loud, or have a mantra or anything like that?
No, I don't tend to do that. Although on the last day, I think I frightened a few people because I did speak really quite loudly and aggressively on a hill. But for
it's a flurry of swearing, was it?
No, genuinely, it was quite funny. There was, for context though, throughout. No, I don't have a kind of a repeat. You can do this. You can do this. What's the train? I know I can. I think.
Live, laugh, love. Live, laugh, love.
I know I can. I think I can. I know I can. I think I can. You hear that? What's that from?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I think Dumbo. I think there's a train in Dumbo that says that. Anyway.
I know I can. I think I can. That's not,
I know I can. I think I can. I know I can. I think that's what the train does. It's trying to get up a hill, and then it goes to I know I can. I think I can. I know I can. I think I can. As it goes over the top. Very cool. No, I don't do that. I'm not a little train.
What?
Exactly.
All this time? I was under the impression you were a small train.
And the opposite of that, I find I really succumb hard to earworms. So you know what an earworm is? We discussed that before. For anybody who doesn't, it's just a little kind of refrain, maybe one line from a song that gets stuck in your head and won't go away, so you keep repeating the same part of a song over and over. I have problems with that. But no, I don't. And so for that reason, I wouldn't repeat a mantra because it would eventually become irritating like a stuck record. So I tend not to do that at all. Swearing and getting angry on the very last day, there was Chris said, we've got a little surprise for you a couple of kilometres in, and everybody kind of went ha 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 and ignored it. And a couple of kilometres in, there was a massive, long, big, steep hill that just seemed to go on forever, that wasn't on any of the mapping, any of the briefing for us. We're like, you bastard. So we got on the hill, and I was trudging along at a real nice pace. I felt good, really, really good on the last day. I was trudging along at a real nice pace, maybe 15-minute mile, 12-minute mile perhaps, it felt like anyway. And I hit the hill and decided, I could see the top of it. It was just a kind of a steep, heavy incline. And I thought, I'm going to maintain that pace. I'm not normalising, I'm going to maintain that exact pace all the way up, that boom, 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 jump. And I did. And I overtook 4 or 5 people on the hill, which is the first time I'd really overtaken people. Once you're in line, you kind of stick with that line. But as I went past each one of them, they must have been horribly disgusted at the colour of the air around me. Because I was going, you fucking, nobody messes with Johnny Payne. Johnny Payne's here, and this is his mountain. And all this kind of mental stuff that I can't really remember exactly. But I just found this sheer aggression that lasted for a good 5 minutes and scared everybody around me. And then what was funny about that was once we got to the top, everybody afterwards said they'd been through this, that you get to the top and think, great, I'm going to get to run down the other side. But you couldn't. As soon as you started to run, you're up to your hips in it. So the whole way down was a trudge. It felt like going up a hill again. So that got sworn at all the way down as well.
I can imagine.
That was fun though. I enjoyed that.
Jamie, onward. What surprised you most about, or caught you off guard during the event? So essentially, what surprised you or caught you off guard during the event?
Honestly, can't think of anything that caught me off guard. I think I was really well prepared, frankly. I don't think anything threw me. Maybe day 2, maybe I didn't expect quite such insane conditions. But I didn't feel like, oh God, I didn't sign up for this at any point. I think possibly Chris had said at one point that the sort of day 3 onwards, you're on the lakes. They're long, and you come out maybe of a checkpoint, which is usually just a teepee tent, and you've got to cross this lake, and you can't see the other side. And as you walk, it just seems like a vast open nothingness. Okay, and we were told this in advance and knew this to be the case. And you would think, oh God, this is never going to end. And that was going to be the battle during these days, was a psychological battle with being on this never-ending conveyor belt of ice. And as with a few other things, I thought he was just doing a very good job of selling the fear. And I was surprised to find that was as arduous as it was. As you moved across these things, you would look back and see the teepee, and it looked like you hadn't gotten any further away from it, even though you'd been moving for an hour. And you still couldn't see the other end of the lake, and you knew you had 7 of these bastard lakes to do. That was a psychological torment that we were warned about, but I was still surprised actually became a thing.
The man in the arena.
Yeah, that was tough.
So to finish, the most pertinent question, Frankie Miller, what's next?
The jungle.
So talk us through that.
So the jungle is next. So if anybody's been following along, whoever has been following along will know that this is part of a global series of races. So same distance, approximately 250 kilometers. Some of them are shorter, some of them are a tiny bit longer, I think. Arctic, then the jungle, which is next for me in roughly 12 weeks. Then
Where's that? Where's the jungle?
In Peru. So rainforest, pretty brutal.
Is there not civil unrest in Peru at the moment?
No, I think it's calmed down now.
Okay, cool.
There was last time we talked about it in the podcast, and it was news to me at the time. No, that's calmed down, and I think we've got safe passage through.
Flexing my very, very limited geopolitical knowledge on you. That's the only thing I know about.
It was better than mine at the time. Although I have looked into it since, and it seems to have calmed. So that's the Peruvian jungle. After that, only 6 or so, maybe 8 weeks later, max, is the Tian Shan Mountains, which is Kyrgyzstan. And then after that, we're into the Namib Desert. That's in November. So the next one, the one we're focusing on now, which is very different, very technical terrain, probably a lot more volume of running, whereas the Arctic was a hard march for the most part, and this will be a little bit more running, but a lot more technical and a lot more, it's the jungle, so there's going to be a lot more shit to deal with in terms of obstacles. But for me, going back to one of those very first questions, the heat is going to be, and the humidity there, in fact, is going to be the biggest factor for me to cope with. I'm not looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to being in the jungle because it's so alien to me as a concept. I'm looking forward to the experience, but I'm not looking forward to the heat nor the humidity.
And just finally, just so people can know that whilst we've spoken about things a little bit flippantly, the people have lost fingers and toes off the back of the ultra. People had moments of snow blindness, and there's been some hypothermia. It's a pretty serious. There's been some serious outcomes, haven't there?
Yeah. I think it's worth saying. It's worth saying to start with that every person that undertakes something like that knows the risks. We sign waivers. The waivers aren't just to protect companies and all the rest of it. The waivers are to remind you what you're getting into. So there was nobody out there that wasn't voluntarily there, and all those risks were factored in beforehand. And I'd like to say a massive well done to Chris King and to the Beyond the Ultimate team, whose management of what could have been a very difficult and dangerous situation was way beyond what I thought people were capable of. They were insanely good. I don't think anybody was waiting more than 10-15 minutes to be rescued, which, when you consider the environment and the circumstances, is wild, and an amazing organisation. But yeah, it was tough for some people. Certainly day 2. People pulled out after that because of overuse injuries and raggedy feet and all the rest of it. But day 2 saw some pretty brutal outcomes for some people. Each one of them seems to be okay now, as far as I can make out. I talked to a few guys who had been suffering really quite badly in their home with families and just dealing with the outcome of maybe a chipped finger and bits being lost and whatnot. But part of the adventure, I suppose, for some folk. I'm very lucky to have not had that happen.
Well done. And it's not luck. You've worked through it. You've seen it through. And anybody listening or watching should go and say congratulations to Jonny, because what a bloody shift. If you do have any more questions, get in touch with them directly.
Please do.
If you are interested in any Omnia performance related stuff, then go to the website. If you haven't yet done all the podcasty things, then please do, as we do massively appreciate it, as much as we take the piss and just say at the start of every podcast. It really does help us out, gets us more visibility, more access to guests when we really start pushing that, and just tells us that we're kind of focusing on the right things, which is useful feedback. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's some insights from there. We will unpack how Jonny is preparing for the jungle as things unfold. Obviously things are going to be very different. We'll be training together a lot more as the sort of seasons unfold ahead of time, because we're a bit more aligned in terms of direction now, and we're not on different continents, which helps.
Does help, yeah.
It does indeed. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye.